Hey guys, Steve here, Muscle Talks podcast. I'm here with Shawn Ray, 13 times Mr. Olympia competitor. Our first episode with Bitwith Pros is Muscle Mastery, how to build an unstoppable mindset with Shawn Ray. This episode explores the mindset behind muscle and success. Shawn Ray shares powerful lessons from his career that apply not only to bodybuilding, but to life, discipline, consistency, and personal growth. These interview questions are crafted to help guide a compelling and motivating conversation. How are you, Shawn?
I'm doing good. I know we're on two different sides of the planet. You're in Australia where it's what time?
It is 11 a.m. winter season.
Yeah, and over here it's like 6 p.m. So we're working on two different timelines, but I'm doing good.
Wonderful. Shawn, let's just start off at the top. Tell us about Bitwith Pros and why you put this together.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, hey, I've been retired since 2001. That's an awful long time, but I'm not retired sitting on the couch eating potatoes and donuts. I'm not just sitting out there on the golf course. Throughout my training, and I've trained with some of the best in the world. Of course, my introduction's notorious. I was found by John Brown, 2-time Mr. Universe, 3-time Mr. World. But I've trained with the best of the world, the guys I've competed against. I never had the pleasure of working out with or around Lee Haney or Dorian Yates, for example, or even Ronnie Coleman for that matter. Those were the big three during those 13 times I was trying, and they held 22 consecutive Olympia titles during those years. They were the ones that we were trying to run down in terms of beating. Along the way, of course, I remember exactly the things that I did. I remember exactly the type of workouts, the type of food, the mental approach. Each year was different strategy, different objectives to try to defeat the champion, whoever that was. But at the same time, it was the Shawn Ray way. It was my style. I wasn't trying to do what Dorian was doing. The information was there. We had videos. We didn't have the luxury of YouTube per se. It was still kind of coming along. But, we studied the magazines. We'd watch these guys in guest posing on tours. So what we gleaned from the competition is what we had to imagine how we could approach beating them, right? Like Lee Haney never was putting his entire regime out there for me to absorb, replicate, and then put up against him. I had to kind of take a little bit of this and that and the third and put in some Shawn Ray stuff and go to the gym and apply it on how I can make myself look better or at least more competitive. In that process, I had Flex Wheeler, I had Kevin Lavroni, I had Vince Taylor, Lee Labrada, Nasser El Sambadi, all these different types of physique that I was up against. So I couldn't get in the headspace of thinking about those guys when it was really one guy I needed to beat. And you mentioned 13 Olympias, and in those 13 tries, my first time as a rookie, I was outside the top 10. The balance of those 12 tries, I was in the top 5, right? So that's a record that stands today that I'm kind of proud of because so many have tried and failed just to make the top 10. Dexter Jackson's done the most Olympias, I believe, with 20 or 21 years. He spent 2 decades on that Olympia stage. That's pretty impressive. Right. But he didn't have the consistency that I had, which is a record that stands today that I'm still very proud of. But it is because I didn't change too much, right? These guys, I saw what they were, appreciated what they looked like, and then I went about just trying to be the best Shawn Ray I could be. And that's how Bitwith Pros was born. In retirement, people kept coming to me, asking me, what did I do? How did I do it? And it's more than just talking about sets and reps. It's more than talking about my type of diet. You have to put yourself in a mental place. And you got to multiply that by days and weeks and months, and then expand it over a decade to do it at that level, at that consistency. There's some changes that go along the way, growth, and the way I approach it, not only from an athletic side, but a business side. And you're going to have those moments of clarity where, you know what, I can do this. And then you're going to have those moments of self-doubt where, holy shit, what I got myself into? And you got to find your way through it. Every defeat was a setback for me, whether it was 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 5th. I mean, I was getting tossed around that top 5, but I wasn't getting number 1. And in the end, in hindsight, I don't feel that bad about not accomplishing victory because it was such an exclusive group of people at the time that were winning, that are in the history books, that just to be talked about in the same breath makes me feel accomplished. All right. So while we know there can be politics, while we know there can be eras, and I'm on the small end of the era. I think I missed my era, like 1983 and 82 and 81. In 81, you had Franco. In 82, you had Dickerson. In 83, you had Samir, all of whom I'm taller than or as tall as.
Yes, yes.
And then here comes Lee Haney in 1984. Well, in 1984, I was graduating high school. I was just getting started. I had 1 year of training under my belt. Who would know? Who would think that 4 years later I'd be competing with Lee Haney in the Mr. Olympia, let alone coming up with Dorian Yates and Growing Old with Ronnie Coleman. But what I was doing was working for me as a professional, as an athlete, as a competitor, as a challenger. So rather than try to answer each person individually, I got a video series and I put it down kind of memorialized on, instead of repeating myself, I put it down there on video so you can hear where I am specifically zoned in on what I did and how I did it. I can tell you how I did it. I can tell you what I did. It's up to you to apply it. But those principles weren't available to us back then. I didn't hear from Lee Haney himself how he was an 8-time Mr. Olympia. Like it wasn't available while I was trying to compete against him. But I think the smart person now will do their research. A lot of guys hire coaches, and some of these coaches have never been on a stage. And they hang on their every word as if it was coming from the priest himself. But these guys are book smart. These guys are word savvy. They talk a lot of word salad. They had some success with somebody that was already successful. I'm a guy that's self-made.
Yes.
I had a coach. I had a mentor, someone that introduced me to bodybuilding for the first year. And after that, it was trial and error. So I'm self-made. So what I did for me can be replicated if you follow and if you listen and you implement and you absorb some of the principles that I'm talking about. It's nothing earth-shattering or groundbreaking. But what I did worked for me. Why can't it work for you? So me and my partner, Michael, decided to create the website and the video series that kind of can help answer some of those mythical questions. I get 1 million emails. I can't answer all these emails. I'm not giving away all of my principles that I worked so hard to get for free. I can't, just because my buddy's a lawyer, I can't go to him for legal advice without scheduling an appointment.
Of course.
My buddy's a bricklayer, but he's not going to come over here and lay the bricks in my driveway because he's my friend. It's a business. And that's part of what I was taught coming up. Like, you can't bottle up everything and then sell it in such a way that it's gonna work, it's foolproof. But I think if you listen to the right people or the right person that has done what you want to do or has gone where you're trying to get to, that's why you go to college, so you can learn from the professor. That's why you are an intern, so you can learn how to do it from the person that's a professional. I'm giving professional advice, things I sacrifice, my time, my free time, my life, my love life, my family life, so that I could become this professional bodybuilder that took me into the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. So I go down about 7 or 8 different vital things that every bodybuilder should know. And if you don't, it is a class, it's a master class in how I got the things that I got. And as a result of what I got, I'm able to now give back and share. So I broke them down into different chapters, verse and chapter, and I cover exactly what I did. There's nothing, you can't sugarcoat what I did. It's either I did this or I didn't do it. I can't make it up and manufacture it, but I'm looking for someone that comes back to me while I'm planting the seeds and says, hey, your courses helped me get here. That's where my satisfaction is going to come from. So I put everything into this Build with Pros, and now I'm going to wait for my students to come back to give me the affirmation that what I said is not something that's individualized. It's not. It's just something that I applied. And that's what you want when you go to school with thousands of other kids, is you want to get that education, and you want to hope and pray that those kids that get the education and a degree could go out into the world and make a change. That's what I'm trying to do with Build with Pros.
I think as well, from just listening to you, you've mentioned, and what I think you've done is you've been in the trenches. You've been there. But at the same time, and I think I want everyone to get some context, but you correct me if I'm wrong, you've not only done it yourself, You've partnered with some people training through that period. You've probably trained with some of the greats. You've shared ideas with them. Together inside that gym is that there's secrets with other bodybuilders that you took on to create your encyclopedia for you to become better. So the thing is, all this information that you've got is basically coming from a worldly experience that you've gone and explored. And now you're putting it together in this 7-part series that I'm assuming.
Yes,
But I think as well, what I want to make sure that people know as well is, besides the 13 Olympias, please tell us when you first started, just quickly how many competitions you've done, and when did you finish up? Because I think people need to know that this is not age specific as well. It's basically, we're talking about starting off. We're talking about any age. We're talking about what do you want to achieve, and you want to get on whatever it is that your goal is. I know that Bitwith Pros has those answers for them.
Yeah, I never went back and looked at how many shows I did. I'm sure they're there on Google or Wikipedia.
Let's go to approximate. Let's think about it. I think there's a lot there.
Well, I'm just saying, I started out as a teenage bodybuilder, like most people.
Yes.
Coming out of high school.
Yes.
Some people today are getting a later start, but I was a teenage phenom. I went right to the top, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time, wandering about the amateur ranks. I was kind of a man child. I hit the ground running.
Yes.
I won the local teenage county show here in Orange County. Went a little further north and won the Los County championships. Then I won the California teen state championships.
How old were you?
I was a teenager, 17, 18.
There you go. Yes.
Then I won the teenage California. Then I won the teenage national championships. And at 20, I came down under to Australia. I won the junior world over there. Came back and I won the Open Mr. California at 21 years old. Then I won the national championships at 22, earned my pro card 4 years out of high school. And I was a pro until I was 36 years old and I retired from competing. I don't think it's the amount of time because if I'm not mistaken, I think Samson, our reigning Mr. Olympia from England, is probably closer to 40 than he is 35.
Yes.
I think Hadi Chupin is right there with him. He's won an Olympia. I think on the younger side might be Derek Lunsford, who's somewhere between 30 and 33, I might venture to guess. I was on the verge of retiring at that age. I was already gone, right? Yes. So during my era, the bodybuilders were much younger. And I don't, you can say that's an advantage, but I think the sooner you start something, the faster you get to where you want to go, right? I wanted to be Mr. Olympia as a teenager. And in my 20s, I spent my entire adulthood chasing that dream. I didn't get involved with bodybuilding to win championships. I got involved to try to be the best in the world, which is why most of my career was spent on the Olympia stage, not elsewhere. It wasn't the number of contests I was doing because the Olympia only came around once a year.
Of course.
But to get there, there's a certain segregation that you have to have as an athlete from divorcing the real world. There's a lot of dysmorphia in our sport. There's a lot of OCD in our sport because you have to insulate yourself from the world because you can see your competition. I was coming up, I walk in a grocery store and there they are in the magazines. I stop, in the airport or in the liquor store or a bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, and I can see my competition on a regular basis, who I was going up against. And let me tell you something about intimidation. I'm on the smaller side. I'm 5'7", I'm 210 pounds, and I'm looking at guys that are 6 feet, 260, 300 pounds in the case of Nasser and Dorian. And I know that I've got to meet those guys in September on the Olympia stage, half naked. It can do something to your mentality when you see people enjoying food for what it is, holidays, birthdays, enjoying life, enjoying love, raising children, doing the things that normal people do. Bodybuilding's not normal because we do have to put these blinders up. And while we have these blinders up, you got to remember we have bills to pay, we have obligations to keep, we have sponsors that we're dealing with, we have travel, we have certain times that we have to eat. We have workout partners waiting to beat the shit out of us at the gym. And we have to survive those workouts and we have to recover from those workouts to do it over and over again, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And we're expected to make improvements. So in retirement, I'm able to look back and go, how did I do that?
Yeah.
And as I was figuring out how I did it, that gave rise to the demand of Build with Pros, because rather than short answers, quick email replies, text message replies, I put it all in one place so you can get everything that I've learned, everything that I know directly from my mouth. And I got it from firsthand experience. This is not stuff that you can make up. You can't read about it in a book. You know, I did train with Chris Cormier and with Flex Wheeler, and I did travel the world with some of the best bodybuilders and chit chat and rub elbows with some of my heroes, Sergio Oliva, Larry Scott, you know, Muhammad Makawi and Lee Labrada. These are guys I came up with. I talked to the best writers, the best journalists that were writing the articles, Bill Dobbins and Bill Reynolds and Steve Bleckman, the editor of Muscle Development, and of course, Joe Weider himself. The things I retained from them, I'm able to put it back out.
That's what I was
and share with the, not only with the athlete, but also with the fan. And that's how you get your education. Today, these guys are getting their information through guys that have never walked the walk. And that's where I have a little bit of disdain, because they come off as experts, and the gullible guy that sees the coach or the guru working with a successful athlete thinks that because the athlete chose this coach, they could put their same trust in that coach. And to me, it just rubs me the wrong way. That, you know, if I want to be an airline pilot, I want to go to pilot school. And when I get to pilot school, I'm probably going to learn how to fly a plane from somebody that was a pilot.
Of course.
Right?
That's right.
Not someone that read a book and is going to tell me from the pages of a book how to do this. I'm going to learn from the pilot. If I go to med school and I want to be an ophthalmologist and work on the eyeball, as intrinsic as those operations are, you got to have steady hands. You got to learn from somebody that knows how to open the eye up and go in there and fix it and repair it. So I look at bodybuilding the same way. Like, why would you listen to someone that's never stepped on the stage that you want to step on? Maybe there's some trust issues. There's a lot of insecurities in people that don't want everyone to know who they're working with. So they pick a random coach that gets in their ear, and the coach becomes the advisor, the counselor, the religious pillar, the financial advisor, the relationship consultant, the legal advisor, and they become insulated to this one guy that gets in their head. I see it all the time. From where I come from, if someone comes to me to talk about bodybuilding, that's all I know. That's where my education is. That's where my degree is. I started at 17. I've got 42 years in the game.
That's right.
So I don't fancy myself to be an expert in all things, but I am an expert in bodybuilding. You never know what's in a book until you pick it up and you read it one page at a time. So Build with Pros is a book that doesn't really exist anymore, because we're not reading the bodybuilding books. They don't make them anymore. So here we are in the digital age where you can actually fast track your progress listening from someone that's in the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame, Lifetime Achievement Award winner, a professional at the highest degree for 13 consecutive years, how I did it. It's not impossible. It's not rocket science. But having Build with Pros in your pocket at your disposal will be the moral compass to your fitness journey in terms of what you should do, what you think you can do, and what's possible to do. For $50, you can get a wealth of knowledge here at Build with Pros. You're going to spend $50 just on a couple of workouts at the gym. You might spend $50 on some energy drinks or some supplements that you think are going to be real great for you for that moment. This is something for $50 that's going to last for a lifetime. And don't forget, get your 20% off by entering your discount code at MTP20.
I guess what Built with Pros gives you is a mastery. It masters the craft of bodybuilding with yourself.
To be a master, you know that it has to come with time.
It comes with time.
You can't master anything in a day. You know, you're not going to be considered or looked at as a master after 1 year, even if you're good, right? You can win the Triple Crown, right, in horse racing, and get all the accolades. But is that more luck? Is that more genetics? You don't master it until you get the education, the full weight of experience, and the benefit of hindsight. And the advantage of wisdom comes with age. And like wine, they say what? Like fine wine with age. There's a reason why the most expensive wines are the ones that are the older wines, because they
I
take
love the
time,
analogy.
takes time to mature. The things we know now. Could you imagine being a 20-year-old with the 40 years in the bank that I have of the information to go back and be 20 all over again?
That's right.
So I have the advantage of looking back and looking over my shoulder, of having gone through making the mistakes myself, also witnessing the success of other people that are successful. I watched and I know Lee Haney personally, and Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman. I know some of the attributes of why they're successful beyond what their physique looks like. I know the psyche, I know the mindset, I know the person behind the muscle. So when I speak now, I'm speaking from a place of wisdom, and not so much as a coach. I'm talking to you from, I was a player,
You're a
right?
player.
I was a player in the game. Then I decided to become a promoter myself. And while I was in between being the player in the game and the promoter, I was a performer. I was making guest appearances. I was organizing seminars. I was doing repetitive regurgitation of what I did throughout my career on the seminar circuit. And being a promoter, you get to see people come in and graduate and go on to the next level. So I've been doing this promotion stuff since 2006, when Phil Heath won the Shawn Ray Colorado Pro Classic. I've watched guys like Kai Green come up through winning my pro show and going on to winning the Arnold Classic in 3 different times. So I've witnessed the careers of other bodybuilders besides myself, that I can say some things from a position that a regular coach that was never a pro, that doesn't have the advantage of being on that stage, being backstage, being on a diet, having to suffer, having to come back from a defeat, to standing up there in near victory, a whiskers inch away from the Sandow Trophy, to also the combination of working with Joe Weider for 18
I was
years.
going to say that bit about Joe Weider. I mean,
Yeah.
there's Joe Weider was very particular, very specific on who he worked with, who he brought into his fold, and also how long you did have a relationship with him, and also knew what he wanted to achieve in this sport. And also yourself, the competitions you put on, now you're taking all your knowledge, all your years of wisdom, to make sure that bodybuilding or bodybuilders are up on stage, achieving what they want and having the accolades and rewards they should be having.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different perspective, because we have choices who we
That's
get
right.
our information from,
That's
right?
right.
You
That's
can go
exactly.
get,
That's what I was
you
going to
can,
say to you.
you can go online right now and get, type in online coaches, and you got a million choices, like buying a car.
That's right.
And you can get the coach that you can afford. You can go after the coach that has worked with very successful people, and because he's been with successful people, you think he's going to make you successful. But there's very few coaches out there that are doing what I'm offering.
That's right.
I'm offering how I did it myself personally. Only I can do that. Nobody can tell you how. No one can tell you how Shawn Ray did it, because I didn't have a coach.
That's right.
So there's coaches out there that have worked with a lot of different athletes, and you have to work differently with different athletes. I worked with me. So if you like what I did, and you like the things that I presented and I have to offer, then you'll be getting it from the horse's mouth. And I like that one-on-one connection. So the Bitwith Pros platform is a lot different than some of the other guys that in their spare time have something to offer you in the form of a workout plan or a meal plan or a steroid cycle or whatnot. I'm giving you what I did. And now it's up to you to actually apply it. And then I have the motivational side where you can hear my mindset, because that's important too. What was I thinking when I was doing giant sets? What was I thinking when I was doing drop sets? And where was my mind pre-contest, post-contest, in between shows? And the business of bodybuilding, which is another component that goes hand in hand with what you're doing. If you're going to go build your body, you got to build your mind. Then you got to turn it into a business. And that takes a certain amount of savvy. So I don't want to knock the other coaches. What I want people to understand is that the Shawn Ray way, the Bitwith Pros, is a direct reflection of who I am and what I've accomplished and what I'm giving back.
Most definitely. And the first episode we're doing right now is Muscle Mastery: How to Build an Unstoppable Mindset. Now, here we've got the power of a goal. Shawn, you said goal setting is the foundation of everything you've accomplished. From teenager Mr. California to stepping on the Olympia stage. Why is having a clear goal so critical, whether you're chasing a trophy or just trying to change your life?
Yeah, I mean, I won't get real specific. A lot of it's elementary, isn't it? It's almost like, why goal set? I mean, that doesn't just apply to building your physique. That applies to life.
Correct.
If you're able to be successful in bodybuilding, you will be able to be successful in life if you just prioritize things properly. There's a time and a season for bodybuilding. I understood that I chose bodybuilding. It didn't choose me. This is my passion, and that I dreamt about becoming my profession. But you have to have context because, you're dealing with other humans, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, educators, professionals, and you've got to go out into society. They don't give a crap if you're Mr. California. They don't care that you're training for the Mr. Next Door contest. You got to have perspective, so that just a lot of times we could feel sorry for ourselves because we're sacrificing our food and our relationships and our finances because we're doing this bodybuilding thing and we're tired and we're hungry and we're agitated. We expect to be treated a certain way because we look a certain way. And it doesn't always work that way. Society at large can give two shits about what you're doing individually for yourself. You chose to be a bodybuilder. So there's mindsets that you have to be mindful of, that this is a solo journey. You're not doing this for your neighborhood. You're not doing it on behalf of your dad's good name. You're not doing this on the behest of your future children. You're doing this for you. And if I choose to go to college, I could say, I want to be the first to graduate from college because my parents never did, and I want to start a legacy for my family. You're doing it in honor of your family. That's a great thing to do. But the police officer doesn't care if you're speeding. You're still going to get a ticket.
Most definitely.
And the person at the grocery store doesn't care if you're $1 short. You still got to come up with the money to buy the food. So bodybuilders have a tendency to lose perspective and sight of reality when they are trying to hone in on changing their appearance. When you're changing your appearance, you'll also be changing the way you think about yourself, about others. Sometimes there's a superiority complex that comes along with being stronger and being bigger. You start to feel like you're the biggest guy and the strongest guy in the room, that you could beat people up. Remember, bodybuilders aren't fighters. There's an MMA guy just waiting for you to step on his foot so he can show you all he learned in the gym, just because you got big arms and he wants to take down the biggest guy in the gym. I know a lot of bodybuilders that became bouncers because they looked the part. They were big, they're bulky, they look strong, and so they stand at the door and they check the IDs and they want to be the bullies because their testosterone just, they want to show you how strong they are.
Yes.
The problem is fighting is different. MMA fighters and wrestlers can't wait to take a big guy down to the ground and choke him out.
Yeah.
So when I start talking about bodybuilding, I really try to keep the client in mind, because they have to realize that this is all for show. When I'm done lifting all those weights and I'm done dieting and I'm done sacrificing and all that, and I strip down and shave, put on the bikinis, and I get on that stage, this is all for show. It's all vision. It's all vision. None of it's physical at that point. It's a slow dance, and when that dance is over, I'm going to be judged, measured, and I got to accept wherever they put me. I'm not Billy Badass. Nobody asked me how strong I am. Nobody asked me how tall or how much weight I am. They don't care what I did to get to the stage. So a lot of bodybuilders lose sight of that along the way. Feel very sorry for themselves, become very insecure. They become very aggressive. We call it aggro because they're hungry and they're aggressive, and then they respond and lash out to people because they don't understand that they're getting ready for a show. They don't understand that, I want that bench. Well, they're in the gym. They're in a gym. It's a public gym. It's not your bench. You're working out. Wait till the person's done.
Yes.
So I try to make sure that these guys got to understand. You got to respect the rules of the gym. Respect the next guy in the gym, because they don't have hopes of being Mr. Olympia. They're not trying to be the strongest in the gym. They're just working out, trying to maintain, trying to get fit. Their ambition is not to take their clothes off and pose in front of people. Meanwhile, you got guys that can't wait to get in front of the mirror at the gym and they don't understand that in the gym you have women, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have trash men, you have school teachers. They don't understand what you're doing over there in the gym with your shirt off. So there's a certain gym etiquette that I'm mindful of when I talk to my clients, that this is your thing, right? It's very private. I remember Dorian Yates said something very profound. Won the Olympia 6 years in a row. And years later in retirement, he did a podcast and he said, you know, how come when I look through the internet, I never see any pictures of you like with your shirt off, like just kind of casual. And Dorian said, I didn't do that for you to look at me. You know, I was bodybuilding to be the best bodybuilder in the world, and there's only one place you can see that. That's on the Mr. Olympia stage, right? The rest of the time in the gym, I'm wearing my work clothes. I got on my sweater, I got my sweatshirt, I got my baggy pants. I'm not in the gym to look at myself. The only time I look at myself, if I'm going to analyze it and then cover it back up, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
But in bodybuilding on the global scale, you'll see a bodybuilder come in a tank top, come in the short shorts, carrying their jug of water, got their headphones on. They own the gym, and you got to get out of the way. And that's the wrong attitude. That is part of Bitwith Pros. If you're trying to be a pro, you got to know what it is to be a pro. You got to segregate yourself. You got to segregate yourself from the guy who's trying to be the biggest, baddest, and the strongest. Because this is a visual. This is all about looks. Nobody gives a shit if you're the biggest or the strongest. So you have to tone it down. I'm trying to make sure that's not lost in the education of a bodybuilder when I start talking about the mindset, how you approach the weights, how you approach your food, how you approach your friends, how you approach the society at large, moving through an airport, how you're, you know, the perception of ourselves is always more grander than the perception of the person that's meeting us for the very first time. Because we look in the mirror all day. We're monitoring our calories, our weight, our size of our arms. We're constantly self-absorbed. I've got to remind them that when you walk out your front door, nobody gives a shit. That's not the Mr. Olympia crowd that you're going to walk into. That's everyday Joe, everyday Jane. The Olympia crowd will be there in the venue. That's where you're supposed to perform and take your clothes off, and that's where you save that. But you know, today you walk into a gym and you see these guys getting ready for the Mr. Next Door neighborhood or the city or the state competition, and they feel entitled, aggressive, rude, inconsiderate of other people. And so I'm trying to make sure I bring this decorum back into focus, that part of being a pro is more than just lifting weights and winning titles.
So the power of a goal, then, tell us, is that where the power lies, knowing your destination or knowing the destination and then working backwards, the power of a goal?
100%. So if you, I love the phrase, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Of course.
Stays with me because most people are looking at the finish line when they look at Shawn Ray or Ronnie Coleman, right? You're looking at the finish line.
You are.
Can you imagine at my age if I said, you know what, I want to try to run a 4:5:40.
Yep.
You know, when I was a teenager, that might have been kind of realistic as a teenager. Someone that was playing football, someone that was practicing track, someone that was running sprints all the time. I'm a middle-aged man sitting on my stool. If I set 4:5 as a goal for me, it might be so far unrealistic that I pull a hamstring just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So when you set a goal, you got to be realistic with your goal. Now, if I'm at my age now and I say, you know, I want to get back on a bodybuilding stage, I can do that because anybody can get on stage. There's no qualification to get on a stage. But what is the bigger picture? Just getting on the stage, because anybody can get on stage. I have to sharpen my goal. I have to put myself in the mindset that, you know what? I'm in my late 50s. I need to be in the masters. Is there a 50s class? Yes, there is. There's 55 to 60. Okay, that would be my class. How long do I have to prepare? Oh, there's a show in 18 weeks. As soon as I pick that date, I've got 18 weeks to change the way I look and feel. Now, who do I know going in that competition? I know absolutely no one, because I'm no longer getting ready for the Olympia where the world's best is, and I know who's competing.
Yes.
Right? Because as an Olympian, I'd be qualified, and I would know that Kevin, Flex, Vince Taylor, Dorian, Nasser, Paul Lillette, Lee Priest, I know who's going to be there. In a master's at 50, late 50s, 55 to 60, I don't know anybody that's going to be there. I can't even look at a picture of another 55, 60-year-old guy and think I've got to beat that person. So now it's all in my imagination. Goal setting in this industry, no matter what level except the Olympia level, is all left to your imagination. You only control one thing, and that is you. So if you set a goal that you want to walk on the stage, well, that's a very low goal because anybody can do that. Whether it's in your age group or whether it's in the division. I want to do classic, men's physique, or bodybuilding. Anyone, it's open in the NPC novice division to get on the stage. You got to sharpen that goal, get more focus to it. Now, I know I want to do the masters category. I might be able to do a Google search to see what some master guys look like. How does that help me? None of those guys are going to be in the contest I decide to compete in. I live in California, small area. The world is big. There's masters competitions all over the world. I probably wouldn't know anyone that's going to be on the stage. So all I have is my imagination and my mirror to change this into what I can visually see that I'm capable of doing. And once I do that, it still may not be good enough to win, but I'll be better then than I am right now. So having a goal is the first step. And then you keep making those steps. Eventually you'll get there. What's waiting for you is like a box of chocolates. You don't know, but you will be better then in 18 weeks than you are today. And those small goals can help lead to bigger goals. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Well, before you get all the way to 1,000, you got to get to 100. And once you get to 100, you realize that you don't have 1,000 miles to go. You only have 900. And it's a struggle to get to 200. Now you only have 800. But as you start to get closer to that finish line, you'll start to either feel two things. It's too far for me to go. I'm not going to make this. It's killing me. It's distracting. Or you'll feel energized because you're starting to fall in love with the process of what's manifesting in the way that you look and the way that you feel. And instead of it feeling like it's an uphill, you'll start to feel at the halfway mark that you're actually sprinting downhill to the finish line. Goal setting is the beginning of everything. And I was always a firm believer in having a goal.
Wonderful. Breaking down champions' mindset. You often talk about sacrifice and structure. Can you describe what a true champion's mindset looks like in everyday actions? How did you stay locked in mentally, especially when the process was slow and some setbacks hit?
Yeah, you have to know that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you go in with that type of mentality and you look at some of the people that are there, mind you, as a teenager, again, I'm looking at the finish line. I was introduced by a guy that had already won the universe twice.
Yes.
He'd already won the Mr. World 3 times. And he had aspirations to be in the Mr. Olympia. He competed in a different federation, but his aspirations were to be in the Mr. Olympia. Not to be Mr. Olympia, but to participate. That was my introduction at 17 years old. And he told me, you're going to be teenage Mr. America one day. And he showed me what teenage Mr. America looked like. And I would be damned if he didn't look just like him. And I thought, how am I going to be able to do this in this small 3-year, 2-year window that I've got from 17 years old to look like this grown man that won the teen national champions? His name was Doyle Washington. If you want to Google it, Doyle Washington. I thought, wow, a teenager can look like that? He doesn't look like a teenager. He looks much older than me, right? But the impression I got from that statement that that's what teenage Mr. America looks like, he said, do what I do. Just do what I do. Stop with the questions. Show up, do the work, do what I do. It stays with me today like I'm hearing it for the first time. Because throughout my career, it resonated. Do what I do. Do what I do. Do the work. When you do the work, progress happens. You can't stop the progress. And the work is more of a 12-step program because anyone can lift weights and nothing happens, right? If you're not eating right and you're not resting right. If you don't have the vision of the building blocks to make muscle, you're not going to build muscle because training with weights tears it down. You've got to learn how to rest and recover and replenish and hydrate, what foods are good for you, how many calories are good for you, how much quantity. And so these are things you learn along the way, which is why you know that it's going to be a journey. None of this is like winning the lottery. And I was a rational person when I got started, and I was patient. And so I knew if I just keep doing the work, if I keep showing up, if I keep increasing my calories, if I keep trying to sit rather than stand, lay down rather than sit, walk rather than run, save my energy for the gym where I'm going to spend all I got. And when I'm out of that gym, replenish it, recover, do it over again, eat, sleep, train. And that was my groove. That was my jam. And very few people could do it because there were a lot of guys that wanted to go there. I would go in the gym and I saw other young teenagers that wanted to go there. I wanted to train harder. I wanted to train longer. I wanted to go further. So that desire kicks in. And I think that where there's smoke, there's fire. And when you get bit by the bug, and it happens for some and others fall away. When you get bit by the bug, you just become so self-absorbed with wanting the knowledge. And mind you, we had all these different magazines to choose from. Flex, Muscle and Fitness, Muscle Mag International, Muscular Development. There was magazines plenty. And I immersed myself in it. Not to mention, when I had free time, I said, where are you going to be? I'm going to be at a gym. I would go to all these different gyms. I didn't stay in one place. I didn't let the grass grow. But I wasn't in a hurry. I was 17. I felt like 2 years is a lifetime. 2 years later, I won the teen national championships like John said I would. And that didn't happen by luck. That happened because I had goals and because I was resilient. But most importantly, I was patient. You have to have patience. You're changing the way you look, which changes the way you feel, which also changes the way you think. Not only that, it changes the things that you do, because the gym is all inclusive. I mean, it's all encompassing. My friends were in the gym. My life was in the gym. If you were looking for me, I was going to be at the gym. You no longer found me at the club, at my buddy's house, hanging out, playing pickup basketball, playing pickup football. Everything was for the gym. I was trying to eat, sleep, and breathe the gym because that's where my journey was. That's where my heart was. That's where my desire was. So you have to be patient. That's the number one key in goal setting and planning.
This will definitely segue into the next question, but I guess as well, just covering the first two parts, the goal and the champion's mindset, you said knowing where the destination was, but the fact is that you had peers or you had mentors that not only said to you what you could achieve, they showed you it. And I guess Bitwith Pros shows you what you can achieve. So Bitwith Pros shows you what you can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, that in a nutshell.
Yes.
The very, very few guys, and I kind of separate myself from a lot of coaches, they know of champions.
That's right.
They've heard of champions. I was surrounded by them.
That's right.
I held Chris Dickerson's Mr. Olympia trophy that he won in 1982 in 1984, right? He set up my first professional photo shoot with John Balick, who was the editor-in-chief of Iron Man. One of my first introductions into bodybuilding was running into Bob Paris, who won the Nationals in 83 and 80, the Universe in 83, along with the Nationals. And I ran into him in his gym, World Gym in Venice Beach. And there he was. Like I'm looking at him in the magazine in my house. I drive an hour to the gym. I'm walking up the stairs, and there he was doing pull-ups and a photo shoot. And I look over, and there's Rachel McClish. And there's Samir Banu, and there's Berto Fox and Danny Padilla. I just walked into the magazine. So this isn't something that was a fantasy, right? This was my reality. Right. And I got to talk to these guys. I got to watch them. And more importantly, over the short term, I actually became them.
Yes, you did.
I watched it, I learned, I took a little bit here and there, and I talked, and I became them. And then I was eating with them, and then I was traveling with them, and then I was competing against them. I competed against Bob Paris. I competed against Chris Dickerson. I competed against Robbie Robinson. I competed against Samir Banu. I competed against Albert Beckles. I mean, you name it. Everybody that I came up with that I thought was like mythical, I ultimately was competing with them. Of course, Arnold retired in 1980, and I didn't become pro till 87 and in the Olympia in 1988. But then I became the Arnold Classic champion in 1991. And then I became an MC for the Arnold Classic. And then I was working with Arnold. So all of my dreams were coming true because I immersed myself into this thing called bodybuilding, and all of my ideas and all of my thought processes are coming from a place where when I talked to Samir Banu and when I talked to Chris Dickerson and when I had this conversation with Larry Scott and when Lee Haney told me this, and when I talked to Dorian and Flex Wheeler said that and Kevin, all of my analogies, all of my thought processes when it comes from a place of conversation and wisdom that was bestowed upon me from some of the very best in the business that ever did it. That's why I said, like, I have a master's degree in bodybuilding, because my information doesn't not only come from me, but some of the professors like Nasser El-Sambadi and Dorian and Ronnie and Lee Haney. Those conversations are instilled in me. And my memory's very clear of times, dates, and places. John Brown calls me to this day to ask me about certain times, dates, places, and names of people that he forgot. Because these are cherishable moments for me. A lot of the guys have gone on to the pearly gates. God rest their soul, Larry Scott and Sergio Oliva and Chris Dickerson. These are guys that I gleaned a lot of information from. Peter McGough, the historian, the Weeder brothers, Joe and Ben. But what they gave me stays with me. That's why I gave it back. I'm giving it back through Bitwith Pros.
I think as well, we need to mention, I think you're paying it forward as well. I think that's what you're doing. I just want to mention that word. I think you're paying it forward. And I think that's what people like yourself that have all this knowledge and wisdom, and wisdom comes with age. Even myself, I guess I don't believe I have it, but I do. When you have 56 years or maybe 30 years of adulthood, you whether you like it or not, you have wisdom, and you can go back and reflect and also educate. And that's what you're doing here with Bitwith Pros. Speaking about the journey and speaking time, you mentioned the importance of small, as I mentioned, segueing in, small, realistic and incremental goals. You talk about setting small, realistic goals. Why do so many people fail by dreaming too big, but too soon? Can you give an example of a time when one small step led to a breakthrough in your career?
100%. So when I won the teenage national champions, I went to Australia and won the junior world championships, junior Mr. Universe. And Albert Beckles was the guest poser in Sydney, Australia, 1985. There was no reason in my mind to think that I wasn't going to win the junior nationals. That's the one that Lee Haney won as well. I was the junior world champion, and I'm thinking I'm going to go over here and win the junior nationals to go with it, because that's the next logical step, right? Because of my birthday, where my birthday fell in, you had to be 20 years old and younger. And the junior world championships came before the junior national championships. And since I'd won the Teen America, or we call it the America because it's nationals, and the junior world, I was supposed to walk in this junior nationals and win. And, I ran into one of my arch rivals, a nemesis from across the country, that as a teenager was arguably one of the best in the world, by the name of Eddie Robinson. Eddie Robinson was your version of Lee Priest over in Australia as a teenager.
Right.
But he was bigger. He was a power lifter. Huge quads, massive arms, big deltoids. Eddie Robinson was as big as they come for a 20-year-old, and arguably was probably the strongest. And I was going to go up against this guy, and I knew that I couldn't beat him on size. I'd have to beat him on detail. And I think the idea that I was going to go up against such a big, light heavyweight that I needed to just diet down and get shredded, that I lost too much size. He came in a little bit softer than me, but he was so much bigger and so much fuller, and no one believed that he was 197 pounds. I think the weight limit was 198. I think I came in that show, I was 184, and I looked 10 pounds lighter than he did. But it was a humbling experience to go from winning everything to coming in there as junior Mr. Universe, thinking I'm going to win the junior national championships, and this big monster of a former teenager, because we were both 20, humbles me and puts me in second. It pumped my brakes. I was like, I needed that. I needed it, because then I had somebody like John Brown tell me, look, this is not going to be handed to you. What you get from now on, you got to earn. And I needed to be heavier. I thought I needed to be lighter, more ripped, and that happens. It's a trial and error thing.
I was going to say that's what it is.
These things that these are things that happen to the very best and the greatest of the great. You're going to hit your peak on one show. It's going to take you a whole another year to do it the next. But I learned a little bit more about myself in defeat. And I also learned what it was like being a winner. I liked winning more than I liked losing. And so from that junior nationals getting second and not getting that title, I moved into the adult division because I turned 21, came back and I won the Mr. California in 1987 overall, and I won the national championships overall. So that was a learning lesson for me, to lose to Eddie Robinson, who I didn't have any shame losing because I knew he was the #1 guy out there.
Of course.
But it gave him a false sense of security because he did not show up at the nationals in 87 looking like he did at the junior nationals in 86, and I got my revenge.
Oh, then this would obviously explain even more so, Shawn, that your why, and as you progressed, you started to understand your why, and your why was stronger than your willpower. And you said that if your why is strong enough, you'll find the how. What is your strongest why, and how did it evolve over time? For someone struggling with motivation, how do they find their true why?
Well, you got to remember, one day at a time, right? Like so many people plan so far into the future that they forget to live today. I was told I couldn't be a bodybuilder, so I set out on the journey to become one. And when you set out on that journey, the individuals you run into are so diverse, right? Because I found out that bodybuilding is global again. 2 years out of high school, or 1 year out of high school, I was in another country, Australia. That was never on my radar. You know, before I became a bodybuilder, I'd never traveled. I was in high school. Then the teen nationals took me to Atlanta, Georgia in 1985. The teen nationals in 1984 took me to Detroit, Michigan. The junior universe took me to Australia. The junior nationals took me to Niagara Falls, New York, Buffalo, New York. Then in 1987, I was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I say that because, why? I had always envisioned myself traveling when I was in high school playing football. One of my infatuations was studying the globe. I was looking at different places, different cultures, different countries. I would watch movies on television shows about travel. I didn't know how that was going to factor into my life as I got older, but one day at a time, as I got older, the next thing you know, I was stamping my passport in all these different countries: Germany, Russia, England, China, Mexico, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you name it. I was going everywhere because bodybuilding was global. And I remember Joe and Ben Weider telling me, Ben Weider specifically, that he was a missionary for bodybuilding. Missionaries travel, right? They get all over the world. Through my bodybuilding, fantasy, dreaming, sacrificing, daydreaming, I was going all over the world. I was doing what I had thought about as a football player, which is only nationally for football, but I'd been all over the United States. It's taken me to Florida, New York, Ohio, Chicago, Washington, Alaska. I'm all over the United States, and I forget about that because the United States is big, right? It's a big place with lots of culture, lots of diversity, different religions, different ethnicities, different cultures. And then you get outside the United States and you go, wow, Colombia, Brazil, like South Africa. My why was I have to succeed. There is no going back. Once I stepped in, I always say this: you get in the pool, you sink or swim. Once I got in the pool, I had to learn to swim, and I just kept treading this water. And every day that would pass would put me closer to my goal. I'm on my path. I'm living my why. Why? Because I want to be the best. Why? Because somebody told me I can be great. Why? Because these guys are good. These guys are phenomenal. These pictures in the magazines. I'm getting motivated. I'm eating my breakfast, looking at the magazines. I'm watching the videos on TV. Everything was about bodybuilding. I was self-absorbed with, I got to get through today so I can get to tomorrow. Not just the meals, because along the way, there's 6 meals in the day I got to get in. There's this rest and recovery period I got to get in. But then there's these battle sessions in different gyms with these different gladiators that I had to look forward to. I mean, when I tell you, Steve, I would sometimes wake up with goosebumps because I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get to the gym. I knew the guy that was waiting for me at the gym. or sometimes I didn't know who was waiting. And there was this pit in my stomach going, what am I walking into? Right. I know Chris Cormier is stronger than me. I gotta visualize this workout because he's gonna try to outlift me. You know, I know Flex Wheeler doesn't want to work out. I want to go in there and kick his ass. I want him to remember today. I got to amp myself up and just take him to the mat and beat him up. There's all of these are nuances that from the minute I hit the ground, go to the bathroom, get to the kitchen, get my food in, put my bandana on, strap on my shoes, get in my car, put the rock music on. I got to amp myself up and I got to walk in that gym like I'm going to war. And my why was because I can't fail, right? I thought I was going to be a pro football player, and I walked away from football to bodybuilding. My dad's watching me shave my legs, look at these half-naked men, watch these guys posing, studying the magazines. What am I doing with my life? Like, my dad's wondering what's going on. Like, he didn't understand it. And then I come home with this trophy, and he's like, "Is that worth it? You spent all these weeks training and dieting, and all you got was this trophy?" And he's right. What am I going to do with this trophy? Where am I going to go? What he didn't know, I got a glimpse at the finish line. I got a glimpse at John Brown's lifestyle. I got a glimpse at Chris Dickerson's lifestyle. I got a glimpse at some of these bodybuilders in the magazines making appearances in different countries, signing photos at these shows, selling their clothes, getting sponsorship deals. There was a way for me to exist, but I have to become like them. I got to keep fighting to be in the winner's circle, because winning validates the contracts. The contracts affords me the opportunity to keep doing this. And it also opens the gateway to be amongst the best. So I have to make this work. My why was I have to be the best. There wasn't looking sideways at the guys I had to go through to get there. It was looking in the mirror and constantly psyching myself up with, I have to do this. In every bodybuilder, doesn't matter if you're trying to become Mr. Orange County, Mr. Australia, doesn't matter. You have to be all in. And I sold out every single time I was all in. And fortunately for me, I was having immediate results, immediate success, because my mind foresaw where I was going. I was willing this thing to happen. I had to make this work. I coined the business of bodybuilding because when I wasn't bodybuilding, I was all about business of bodybuilding, marketing, promoting, endorsing, being in front of the camera, behind the camera, producing. And I found a way for the nickels and dimes to make dollars and cents. It's a business. This whole thing is a business. I'm the product. Joe Weider's selling me and marketing me as the product. I have to make the negotiations. I have to learn what my value is. How much am I going to get on an airplane and fly across the country to make a guest posing appearance? What am I going to charge? How much am I going to sell these pictures for? How much is it going to cost me to print these pictures? How much is this t-shirt? How many of these t-shirts can I make? What sizes? What colors? You know, you become this businessman through watching and learning other businessmen. I surrounded myself with people that were in the places I wanted to be, and I made them my friends. I became the student until I could graduate. And that's where the why comes in. Why? Because I wanted to be the best. And I wasn't letting the distractions get in the way. How? By doing the work, segregating myself from other people that weren't on the same path, and surrounding myself with people that were like-minded.
And here's the crazy part. It's a one-time payment of just $49.95. That's what most people drop on a tub of pre-workout that fades in a few hours. It'll level up your training for life. And because you're part of the Muscle Talks crew, you get 20% off with code MTP20 at checkout. Go to bitwithpros.com, use code MTP20 at checkout, and start training smarter with Shawn Ray and Bitwith Pros. So you called bodybuilding an art. What did you mean by that? What role did creativity and intuition play in how you trained and sculpted your physique?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we see today will be forgettable tomorrow. When I was coming up, a lot of the things that we saw, we consider it art because it's still something that people long to look at. You know, they didn't have YouTube when I came along in bodybuilding when I started, but they have it now. And kids today constantly come up to me and tell me that they studied my posing on YouTube because it's been memorialized. There's a reason why people are going to YouTube looking at older bodybuilders and what they did, because we took the time to make it part of who we were. I got introduced to bodybuilding by a professional bodybuilder who was an art major. And he emphasized to me that the people may forget what you do on stage, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And that stayed with me, because he said the only thing that you have to give and leave is your routine. That's your signature. So what does it mean if you're going to train all these hours, diet all this time, sacrifice all of this stuff to go up and prowl around the stage, stomp around the stage, hit some random poses, play some background noise, and it's forgettable and nobody remembers it once you're done? And you do that year after year and people don't really remember what they just saw. There's a reason why there's hundreds of thousands of views when it comes down to looking at YouTube, which can be calculated on the different channels of different routines. And people that are young enough to be my kid these days come up to me and say, yeah, man, I loved your posing. Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, what are you, 19 years old? They weren't even born when I was doing what I did on stage, yet they're seeking out what it was. What did we miss, right? Like some of these kids, they never knew like Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston, what a quality voice Whitney Houston had. But the work, Prince, Elvis, the work is memorialized forever. That's art. Now, the reason why I use the word art when I talk about bodybuilding is because we all start off with a blank canvas. There's nothing there. We look in the mirror, there's nothing there. We're not built yet. We are under construction. But you know what? Every artist has the same tools. You know, when we talk about art, every artist, once they have a canvas, they have the same choices of colors. They have the same style of pens or paints to choose from. Now it's the individual that's going to come up and pick up those paints, those colors, and craft something, whether it's a landscape of a sky, a face, an automobile, a plant, or an animal. That's where the creativity comes in. And if you have 5 artists with 5 canvases, they may pick up their paints and their brushes and do something very individual. And when they turn them all around, none of them are going to be the same. They're all going to be very distinct, very individual, and none of them are going to be really comparative. But somebody has to pick a winner on who's got the best picture. And again, if you're looking at a photograph that's been drawn and it's just a face next to someone that drew a picture of an alligator, and someone else that drew a picture of a car, and someone else that did a farm, they're all totally different. In bodybuilding, when I stand up there at 5'6", 210 pounds, next to Dorian Yates, who's 5'10", 280 pounds, Ronnie Coleman, 280 pounds. I mean, Flex Wheeler, 250, Lee Labrada, 185. You got to pick a winner. And what might separate us in terms of being memorable is how we present ourselves. All right. So Ronnie and Dorian they're not going to be forgettable just on their sheer mass. Whether they can pose or not doesn't matter. We're looking at something that we've really never seen. They're like the Jurassic Park of bodybuilding, and they don't have to be graceful and artistic. But for me to be remembered, Labrada to be remembered, Muhammad Makawi, we got to deliver something above and beyond our gifted genetics and our condition and our balance. That's where we put our performance on. And I think I put a lot of pride into what I did over those years, because I was up there over a decade, that for me, my style is so much different than the other guys that it will outlive what I did on the stage. A lot of people that I talk to, they don't know if I was second, fifth, or whatever. They know I was a top Olympian, but they come up and they say, I loved your 1999 posing routine. I loved your posing routine in 1994. So graceful. These are things that I was told before I started doing my performances that I should hear. John Brown told me it's about how you make them feel. They don't talk about necessarily how I looked. They talk about how moved emotionally they were through the routine. They could name the song. You know, oh, your License to Kill Olympia routine in 1990 in Chicago. What did I place? I don't know where you placed, but man, I thought you should have won. They don't even care that I didn't win. They remember the routine. So I put my effort, my emphasis into my art, which was my posing style and my signature, which would have been the song choice. But also the idea in my head that they may forget where I placed, but they won't forget how I made them feel. So that's where the artistry comes in. And remember, with art comes style, with art comes class, with art comes balance. There's a lot of adjectives, and it's natural for an artist to speak in those terms. You'll never hear Dorian, Evenly Haney, or Ronnie Coleman or Nasser talk about the art of bodybuilding. It's out the window. It has no relevance to them.
Well, let me emphasize a little bit more there. I was just writing away. Then what Bitwith Pros can show us, and I'll finish it with this in a moment. But there are trends, there is style, there is design, there is sculpture, there's a period. But I feel, like you said, people can wonder, what did we miss? And I think with Bitwith Pros, you're offering them a few things that they may have missed. So you're offering some of those secrets, some of those time, a time period, a period where things were in the vault, and you're opening the vault to many things to offer people a little bit more things they may have missed. And
well, yeah, naturally because I lived it. I
lived
it.
That's
right?
what I say. Yeah, that's exactly right. You lived it. Yeah.
There are other coaches that were never.
They've never lived it.
They were never on the Olympia stage, right? They never broke bread with Lee Haney and went to Chris Dickerson's house and learned from being friends with Kevin Levrone and Flex Wheeler and Dorian Yates, even into retirement, being associated with people like Arnold. They don't know what that's like. And so I'm able to talk from a place of a time that no longer exists.
That's
Just
right.
go to a bodybuilding show. Go to a bodybuilding show and I'll give you some perspective. I haven't missed the Mr. Olympia since I was in it in 1988. I think that goes back 37 years or something like that. I'm not a mathematician, but subtract 2025
of course
to 1988. So that means I witnessed every routine and I watched every Mr. Olympia in some form or fashion since 1988, either on the stage, backstage, reporting, emceeing the competition, or sitting there with my sponsors or watching it as I did last year. I can tell you what the guys posed to in the 1990s, and what songs, sometimes what color posing trunks that they wore. I was there this past year, and I can't tell you what Mr. Olympia, what song he posed to. The year before, when Hadi Chapin won Mr. Olympia, Derek Lunsford, I don't know what song that was the winning song, even all the way back to Brandon Curry, Big Ramy. It's a very forgettable experience. The thrill of victory, I'm in the moment with those champions, but there's nothing there that's moving me as a fan that I can say, wow, that Top Gun posing routine. When I was coming up, we knew what the guys were posing to because we removed Vince Taylor with his Terminator routine, even King Kamali and Melvin Anthony with all the gyration and stuff, the dance moves. Jerem Charles, the king of the $10,000 shows. We had something to look forward to. Kevin Levrone with his Creed music, that's gone. And that was part of the art form. And so I can bring that experience to guys that are looking to bring that back. And a lot of them want to bring it back. They just don't know how to get there. They don't know how to get there. So Bitwith Pros has that element because of the history that I have in the sport with the people I came up with.
I love that. You mentioned a time when you mentioned competing and obviously leaning out too much. And I guess this, again, would segue into this question here, learning through failure. You said you lost more shows than you won. What did losing teach you that winning couldn't? How can listeners reframe failure as part of the process, not the end of the story? And before I say anything, I've heard that from many basketball greats, tennis greats, golfing greats, and they talk about lost more than they won, but what they needed to win was important.
Well, let me tell you what, you know how old I was when I said that?
How old?
I was 19. I won the
Wow.
teenage national championships in
Yeah.
1985.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even a pro yet. They were
Mm.
asking me about my future.
Yes.
You know, what do you want to do? And I said, well, now that I've won the teen national championships, I'll probably lose more shows than I win when I go pro,
Wow.
because I'll be up against the world best. And that's true, right? I
Very
spent my
wise.
entire
Very
career,
wise at such a young age.
I spent my entire career chasing number one. But what losing does for you
Mm-hmm.
is it gives you something to go back and work on. Now, the flip side of that is if you're winning, you can get complacent, right? I won, I can relax, I can take my foot off the gas.
Mm-hmm.
But Lee Haney, Ronnie Coleman, and Dorian Yates and Phil Keith have all shown us that that's not necessarily so.
Mm.
Now, when we started talking about wisdom, what wisdom does when you take that long bird's eye, 20,000 feet away look back at the past, I have better perspective on sometimes why I didn't win, why Kevin didn't win, why Flex Wheeler didn't win. When you have the same judges, you typically wind up with the same results because they don't change their opinions on what they like from one year to the next. I can live with that. I can accept it now. But when I was in the moment, it was the last thing from my mind. I just kept coming back. If I just keep coming back, my number will come up, kind of like playing the lottery. My number will come up. I'll work on this. I'll work on that. I'll get better. That's what losing does. It takes you back to go work harder, to try to improve on your good strengths and bring up your weaknesses. And when you're just thinking about winning, you're not thinking of the reasons why you lost, right? You're trying to fix the small things that are in your control, because it's a subjective sport of opinion. We don't control the outcome. I knew that going in. We all know what we sign up for. It's no conspiracy theory. But the further you get into retirement, the further away you get from the stage, you do realize there are certain elements of why you can't win. Not that it's rigged, but in a sport where you have the same judges judging every single year, and they don't change the winner. Mind you, 3 champions, 22 consecutive years. They were not always at their best when they won. Arguably, there's an argument for Flex Wheeler to have been Mr. Olympia, for Nasser El Somebody to be Mr. Olympia, Shawn Ray to be Mr. Olympia, Kevin Levrone to be Mr. Olympia. In my era,
There is.
we all have a case and a very strong argument. So what is the reason? The only reason that makes me feel comfortable in retirement is that you have the same people picking the same winners. Okay. So I don't feel as bad with my maturity and my wisdom accepting second, third, fourth, or fifth, because I understand that dynamic. Now, how could I complain about losing to Lee Haney? How could I complain about losing to Dorian Yates? How can I be sad about losing to Ronnie Coleman? These are the best bodybuilders the world's ever created.
100%.
Right? Like, is there anything better than those three? And in retirement, Phil Heath made a big run. He had 7 Olympia wins in a row. That was a strong run for him. How am I going to complain losing to those 3 champions? Well, they held off Rich Gaspari, Lee Labrada, Kevin, Flex, Chris, Vince, Nasser. These are Hall of Fame bodybuilders. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I got nothing to be sad about. So when you get perspective, sometimes you don't have it in the midst of pursuing it. But losing for me, when I'm at the peak of my career, in the middle of my run, gave me more determination to work on the things that I could control, not go to a dark place of feeling sorry for myself. And if you watch the Battle for the Olympia tapes, yeah, I could find some things wrong with the champion. My job is to go back to the drawing board and exploit those things. I ran out of time. I could have continued competing. I retired at 35, 36 years old. I could have gone till I was 40, but when I realized I could not win is when I decided to step away. And Ronnie won 4 more Olympias after I retired. So there was nothing waiting for me on that stage except being a participant. And after 13 Olympias, I'd had enough.
Well, then, taking all that mindset and the experience, and obviously Bitwith Pros, not only being for people to become a pro, maybe those that are there now and needing something extra. What about the non-athletes? You write here, even for people who will never step on stage, what can they take from the championship mindset you developed? How does training your body help train your mind for success in life or business. And I'm an advocate for that because I've never been on stage, but I can tell you how much bodybuilding, but also some of the people that I, like yourself, looked up to in this, I had posters up on my wall. So tell
Yeah.
us the mindset for the non-athletes.
Yeah, well, you got to be mindful. If I pick up a basketball, I'm doing the same thing that Michael Jordan did, Kobe Bryant.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
I mean, I can play basketball, I can shoot it. I'm not Michael, I'm not Kobe, and I don't have that mindset. You know, if I pick up a tennis ball and a tennis racket, you know, I'm doing the same thing that the pros are doing. The mindset is what makes us different, right? Like, I lifted weights because I wanted to be the best in the world. So my approach, not only would it be more holistic in its approach, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, I have a very specific goal. I want to be the best. That means I'm going to have to do more than the guy that wants to just lift weights recreationally. You got to get it. You got to get out of my way. The guy that wants to lift weights recreationally, they still have to know the mechanics. They still have to know, for example, I'm not a professional basketball player because I pick up a basketball, but I know what these basketball players are capable of doing. I know what it looks like to slam dunk a ball. Maybe that's my goal. I want to slam dunk. Maybe I want to shoot a three-pointer. So how am I going to know how to do that unless I see some pros that have done it?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to just go to the gym for general fitness, you are doing what I did, but your mind is not taking you to a place of self-absorption, all-consuming, driven, but you can evolve there. Don't get it twisted. When you start lifting weights and you start feeling the strength and the changes and the appearance, it starts to change the way you look at yourself and you start thinking about yourself. Well, I benched 200 pounds today. Tomorrow I'm going to try 220.
Yes.
Then I'm going to get up to 230. The next thing you know, you might be in a bench press contest. It can happen. You didn't set out to try to get in a bench press contest, but yeah, your bench press went up so much and you responded so fast that somebody told you, you know what, you're strong, go get in the competition. And if you go in and you win, you might get hooked. Someone told me when I went into the gym to lift weights for football, to be bigger, faster, and stronger, you should be a bodybuilder. And I said, what? So, yeah, you got a body, man. You should be a bodybuilder. You look like you're bodybuilding already. I said, that's too much. No, you should try it. 6 months later, I was in a bodybuilding contest. So general people come in general to lose weight, tone up, fight father time, exercise, but it can lead you places depending on where you're at in your life, age-wise or ambition-wise, because there is no age limit on bodybuilding. Anybody, you can bodybuild till you're 80 years old. Whether you have the desire or the bug to compete, don't ever say never. My sister was the cashier at my bodybuilding show in Hawaii. She was 58 years old. At 59, she said, you know what? I want to compete in your show next year. She's a mother of 4, grandmother to 6, married for 44 years, an accountant and a lawyer, and she wants to walk on my stage in heels, and she hadn't been working out, hadn't been on a diet, nothing. The following year, she did exactly that. And she had a better appreciation for what I did, but she just wanted to like get in shape. And then getting in shape, now she wanted to compete. And it can happen at any age. She was 60 years old when she did that. So I'm encouraging people that want to go in the gym to work out just for general fitness. Be careful what you ask for, because it's a very addictive sport that once you start making progress and feeling good and looking good, you never know. You could wind up on a stage, and even if you don't, you could be going for personal bests. Come in, lose 20 pounds, lift 20 pounds, change the way that you're eating your food, preparing your food. It happens to the best of us.
And also, speaking about that wonderful lady that did get on stage, and many people that would benefit by embracing Bitwith Pros, it also, what does it do for one's mind? What does it do for her in relation to her world around her success, being the grandmother she wants to be? Maybe, obviously, you spoke about her profession, her life, her business. How does that alter her mind now externally?
Well, let me tell you, if you're a lawyer, which she is,
yes,
and an accountant, which she is,
yes,
a grandmother and a mother and a wife,
Yes.
you really don't have any time. For somehow she fit the structure of getting her meals in, her workouts in, her contest preparation in, and all the way to the stage. There are enough hours in the day, if you want, to do whatever it is that you want to do.
She showed
This when you come to build with pros, you realize that, you know what, the structure you get and the motivation that you receive applies in other aspects of life too. Because this is not something that no one can do. This is something for anyone.
Yeah.
But the confidence that you gain
Yes.
as you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, you realize that
Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
I say I have a PhD in bodybuilding because I live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. But you can squeeze this in.
Yeah.
And it changes the way you approach business. It changes the way you approach relationships. It broadens your spectrum of friends because you're meeting different people from different walks of life in the gym. The conversation's different. Now your eating habits are different. Now you're cooking your food instead of eating out. You're realizing that you're looking at the ingredients in the food. You're paying attention to your health, your longevity, your wellness. And as you age, those are things that become more important than anything. Money, business, friends. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So this helps stop father time and gives you perspective on your own mortality. And when you get that, when that light bulb goes off in your head, you don't have to be a competitor to realize that if you don't use it, you lose it. And then you start looking sideways at your friends, your peers that are in your age group, and then suddenly here comes the onset of obesity. Here comes the diabetes. Here comes the crippling effect, the broken hip, the knee replacements, the back pains. These are things that are waiting for people as they get older. And here's how you slow it down and even thwart it from even happening at all through physical fitness and health and nutrition.
In other words, Built with Pros brings the best out of you and makes you also achieve what's possible.
100%.
Yeah.
You're going to look at life and yourself differently. The further you go down that rabbit hole, it's gonna carry over into time management as well.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Practical takeaways for someone listening who's overwhelmed or stuck. What's the first thing they should do today to take back control? What are the non-negotiable habits you believe everyone should build into their day?
Well, I'm retired, right? I stopped bodybuilding in 2001. That was over 23 years ago. Somewhere in that process, I took some time off for myself, so I didn't go to the gym just to see what that was like. Let my body normalize, not feel like I needed to be confined to exercise. And I think everybody needs that. Most of the people that are getting started don't know what it's like to work out every single day, right? So that's a whole different aspect. But what I think you're going to gain is time management. For me, the first thing I do is I get up, I get in my car. I'm either winding up at a gym or at the beach on my bike or walking the boardwalk. I've made it a therapy for me to, rather than spend all of my time in the gym, to get outside on a bicycle. And sometimes get outside and just walk. And sometimes don't wear my headphones so I can hear the sounds.
Oh, yes.
So I can hear the birds, so I can hear the dogs barking, so I can hear the cars passing by, hear the ocean. And I get centered that way. I get on the ground, but I do it first thing in the morning. When I used to bodybuild, I was single, and I used to bodybuild. I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd be in the gym by 6. You know why I did that? Because, and by the way, cell phones weren't a thing back in the 90s, but anything can come up throughout the day once you wake up. But if I put myself in motion to the physical aspect, nothing's gonna interfere with that. I've got to get that hour because I don't give myself time for anything to come in. Most people are still asleep at 5:30 in the morning. But if I'm up and at 'em, and I like to work out on an empty stomach, I'm in the place where the business is happening. I'm taking care of my body. I'm retired now, and I'm still doing the same thing. I don't get up at 5:30 in the morning, but when I do get up, the first order of business is to get out of the house and head towards the beach. And it's either going to take me to the gym, it's going to take me to the boardwalk, it's going to take me to my bicycle, but I get that 1 hour to myself. That's not for anyone else. That's for me. And when I'm doing that, sometimes I have my headphones on. Sometimes I'm listening to music. I'm listening to podcasts, listening to motivational speeches. I'm listening to music. And sometimes I don't have them at all. But that 1 hour is for me before reality starts, before my phone starts to buzz, before I start getting text messages, before I check my email, before I go on social media. That's therapy for me, because nothing else that matters in the rest of the day is going to interfere with my physicality. I got that for me. And it's not always beating up my body. Sometimes it's just stretching. Sometimes it's calisthenics, because that's what we did in football. We used to trot back and forth. We used to sprint back and forth. We used to do our burpees up and down, jumping jacks, movement. You have to be mobile. You've got to elevate your testosterone. You got to work on your flexibility. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And I was born for movement, and I'm highly acutely aware of the people in my universe that don't have the luxury of movement. Some people have had that movement taken from them. And the quality of life changes as you get older. And I'm trying to balance that so that I'm doing everything I can do to have the functionality, the flexibility, and the movement. That's from getting out of the house and having that 1 hour for me on my coffee walks, my coffee bike rides, my exercise in the gym. I don't have to beat myself up, but I got to do something. And that's the first thing in the morning.
I love that. Well, seeing that we're coming to the end of episode 1, Muscle Mastery, final words, leave us moved. If you could leave the listeners with just one truth about what it takes to master yourself, not just your muscle, what would it be?
You got to block out the noise. Nice. There's going to be times where you can't do what you set out to do. You're not going to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. You have to block out the noise. In the day and age of social media, you're going to read comments about yourself, about your family, about your friends, about your wife, about your kids, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. It's might rub you the wrong way. You got to be able to disassociate yourself from what other people think of you. I consider myself like black coffee. I'm an acquired taste. Either I'm too strong because my opinions are loud and I don't want to say boisterous, but they're very matter of fact. I can come off as a know-it-all. Or I'm not sensitive enough because I'm not paying attention to the down and distance of something that I see, because I say exactly what I feel. I say exactly what I think. I don't sugarcoat anything. And it's an acquired taste. Some people don't like that. It's too blunt. People take you for being rude, cocky, or arrogant. But one thing I don't do is apologize for being me. And the choices that I make are a reflection of the things that I'm interested in. And I think through this Build with Pros, it's opened a gateway of communication with people that couldn't reach me. And I'm able to close the gap from being this mythical person to being a guy that puts his pants on one leg at a time. I think we're all equal. I don't consider myself superior because I was good at what I used to do. I recognize that I'm no longer the same athlete, and that the evolution of life is that I am not that guy, right? Personally, I'm not that. I know who I was, but I am not that guy. I'm no longer at war trying to beat the gladiators and the giants and the system in pursuing this title. I'm a little bit more well-rounded. I'm a little bit more patient and a lot more mature. And I think through Build with Pros, it's very therapeutic for me to be able to share my journey, that there is a time and a season. When I was competing, there was on season and off season, and I was two different people. Because on season, I'm that soldier at war. Don't mess with me. Off season, I was on cruise control, but the trajectory was the same. I was still on a mission to go somewhere. Now, like you said earlier, I'm in a position of giving back. I can't take this with me, and I do feel like I'm in an urgent situation here to try to help as many people as I can and give it all back in the way that I received it from Joe Weider, from Arnold Schwarzenegger, from Peter McGough, from Steve Bleckman, from Jake Wood. All of the things that I've learned, I have this platform. It's beautiful that I can now give it back. And there are people out there that will benefit and hear some of the things that I say. So I'm mindful of the audience. I'm also mindful of my journey. And I'm also mindful of the fact that, look, people have choices. They don't have to come here and get my experience, but my experience, not only is it authentic, but it's real. I can't make this stuff up. The things that I'm sharing with people, I'm giving you the black coffee, as John Brown would say, straight as it is. There's no fillers, there's no sugar, there's no cream. It's just raw information and data that worked for me. And I know that I'm not a unicorn. If it worked for me, it can work for someone else.
Well, Shawn, we've come to our first conclusion to episode 1 of a 7-part series. I hope, firstly, I want to thank you, Shawn, for sharing all that information for us, and also, like I mentioned, paying years of wisdom forward and what you've learned. So I feel that if you've sat and listened to episode 1 with us here in this 7-part series,